Hey everybody, welcome back. I am your host, Joe JDF Foster, and today is going to be a little bit of a special one since I'm doing this basically 2 minutes after it aired. Today is going to be on the series finale of Supernatural, and I'm also going to throw in some other things like my notes as usual, but I'm also going to include my favorite episodes in the series. And I'm going to do them in the order they aired rather than what the order of which I liked them, because a lot of them it was hard. A lot of them it was hard to decide on which ones I liked better than the others. But here we go. Supernatural aired in the finale, season 15, episode 20, known as Carry On, aired on November 19th of 2020. Man, I know it's a no kidding thing, but hey, it was part actually of a 2 hour finale, but I do not consider the first hour part of this episode because the first part was just them going over how they got into this point in the series from the actual crew and things like that. And it had nothing to actually do with the show itself, but it was the outside, like Jensen, Jared, Misha, and all them, and the casting crew over the years, rather than the characters and the roles that were involved. And the thing I liked about the first hour, though, is that when it did the opening, it used the road so far, and it did the mix of the part from when they did the Glee, as I refer to it, version of it, where the high school students were putting on the play, and then kicked into the Kansas version. But at the same time, the final episode did not have the song Carry On Wayward Son in the recap of the season. Like, which actually mirrors, as I state in my notes, the first episode season finale, where it didn't have Carry On Wayward Son used in it at the opening. But from season 2 to season 14, it did. So in a lot of ways, so in that way, it mirrors it, in my view. And okay, now on to my notes. This episode aired on, the episode that aired last week on 11/12, titled Inherit the Earth, it would have been a good note, in my view, that they could have ended that as the finale, and people would have been happy. But this also was a good way to end it because of how the series had always worked on the Brotherhood, and how it also isn't in how this one, unlike others that I've seen where they've added that extra episode when they could have cut with the previous one and it would have made a great finale, and they added one and it ruined the finale, and it ruined it and made people mad. This one actually did good on it, where the finale was actually just as good of a note and uh, as the episode that preceded it. And uh, also as a note, oh yeah, I already mentioned it about the preceding, about the season 2 to season 14 finales using Carry On Wayward Son in the road so far notes. Um, This is, and I'm sorry I didn't mention this earlier, I am going to have some spoiler alerts, even though I'm trying to avoid them at certain points. So I will warn you, or at least try to, when they come up. During a pie fit, but this is more of a scene thing that happens, and it's not ruining it, but it actually makes it funny. During a pie festival that Dean and Sam attend, Sam smashes a pie in Dean's face. There is a man seen in the background that is trying not to laugh. Which to me makes it that this scene could have actually, that particular spot could have been improvised. Maybe, as Jared and Jensen were known for improvising on the set, and they were also known for pulling pranks, and that this could have been something they improvised a little bit, because the way the guy couldn't help but laugh, and it was very easily seen that he was trying not to laugh. Okay, and next on my notes, this one's a slight spoiler. In this one, during a hunt that the boys go on in the episode, they deal with vampires, and they realize that that's what they're dealing with. But they recognize them, but they see that these vampires are wearing masks. Well, Dean calls them clowns. Calls them vampire clowns originally, and then he changes it to vampire mimes. He says vamp mimes, which to me is actually a good idea and would have made a great scene, actually, to some extent, as it would play on the idea that clowns is evil, like most people have seen with Pennywise, John Wayne Gacy, and certain other things. But even more special with the mimes as being creepy and evil, since they don't talk. And that has also been a major thing that people have mocked at times about the mimes, and how they would be great ideas for a killer. And when Sam and Dean arrive at the kidnapper's place, the vamp's nest, Dean describes it because Sam asks him, "Are you sure this is the place?" Dean goes, "Dark, creepy, something out of a Wes Craven's erotic fantasy." That actually had me laughing enough that I almost couldn't stop, because it felt right with the way it was phrased. Also, another thing that came up is they bring in a previous character from the first season when they dealt with vampires. That's the new leader of the group. And I actually found it interesting that they did that. Well, and you'll see it when you watch it. The song they play during the episode is, well, here's a spoiler alert. Dingo's early in the episode. Not too early. He goes about halfway, actually. And they play a song in it called Brothers in Arms. And it's actually very fitting in the way that it's played. Also, while Dean's in heaven, it shows how Cass and Jack made things right and then did what Chuck wouldn't do. Stayed out of it and left it to be as it was. He didn't write. They didn't try to get involved in the stories anymore. They didn't try to do like Chuck did and do like the writer style and get himself involved in it. They actually did the thing where they set it up to be a certain way and then left to let whoever was up there deal with the issues that as they occurred. Also, another character from the past comes back, and this one's actually a good one, as it's very fitting for why they're there. And that character, spoiler alert, Bobby. With the odd thing though is where he's at when Dean comes across him. It actually reminded me more of the bar. Of a bar than what I'm guessing was supposed to be his house. Also, when they did this episode, they did use Carry On Wayward Son despite not using it as an opening in the episode. They used it throughout certain parts of the episode, and they actually had two different versions of it play that I counted. They had one where it's a montage set up of Dean driving Baby, as he called that car, and shows you how much it actually meant to him that it had to appear in heaven for him to go on a drive. And it also showed sound. It was also played for sound. And having the two different versions was actually nice in the way it was done. Okay. And now I'm going to do my top 30 episodes. And this is going over the complete series. First on the list, the pilot, where Sam and Dean face off against the Woman in White and introduce us to the characters that we came to love and want over the years. Season 1, Episode 8, Bugs, where Sam and Dean go to this property area and protect a family from a Native American cursed land attack. Now, this episode, as I understand it, wasn't very well liked by a lot of fans, and it wasn't liked, and even in the series, they have it where the character of Chuck states that during another episode, the last time he got a look like that of it being so disliked was when he handed the editor the the book for Bugs, this particular episode. And I just found out because I thought it was enjoyable with the way it was done. Number 3, Season 1, Episode 11, Scarecrow. After a fight separating them, Dean stumbles into a town where people are sacrificed to a deity that takes the form of a killer scarecrow. And it's also the introduction to the character of Meg. Season 1, Episode 19, Providence. The Winchesters take on an evil painting that kills its owners. I enjoyed this one because the twist it added was that it wasn't the guy in the in the painting that everybody thought was the killer way back when. It was actually a little girl with a nice that carried this little doll with her by its hair and would slice the people's throats while they were laying in their bed. And everybody just thought the child was innocent. And they figure out what actually happened. Okay, next up, Season 3, Episode 3, The Bad Day at Black Rock. This is the episode that features I forgot the dad's name now, but it features his specific area where he held cursed occult items, one of which was a cursed rabbit's foot, and a black market dealer named Bella, who makes the brothers' lives a living nightmare in this episode. And it's also our introduction to the character of Bella. And the note that, but I also like that her name in this episode, it's Bella Talbot's her real name, but the name she was using, and Bobby even remembers her by that name, is Bella Lugosi. Who, for those of you who don't know, especially the more modern films and more modern people the more modern film watchers, Bela Lugosi was one back in the way back days of black and white films, played Dracula. And season 3, episode 9, Malice Maleficarum. Sam and Dean stumble upon a coven who are using a book of magic who are using book club to get what they want. And we also find out Ruby's history is unveiled, that she was actually a witch that was turned and sold her soul a long time ago. Also, this is actually the version of Ruby I preferred, and it was played by Katie Cassidy, who would go on to play in Arrow as Dinah Lance. In season 4, episode 7, it's the Great Pumpkin, Sam Winchester. The brothers stumble upon a witch performing a ritual to summon a dangerous demon. And again, this is the one I can't pronounce. I want to say it's Samhain or Samhain. I can't remember exactly which way is correct. But it's the one for which Halloween was actually based around when they took it from the pagans and turned it into a Christian holiday. It became Halloween. And it actually features Ashley Benson in it as a witch. For those of you who probably don't remember her all that well, I remember her for a different reason, but most who do remember her would remember her for her role on Pretty Little Liars. I remember her for a movie called Christmas Cupid. Now, this next one, I put 2 episodes as one, but it's because it was a 2-part deal, in my view. It was a 2-parter, so I put them as one episode. Season 4, episode 9, and season 4, episode 10. I Know What You Did Last Summer, and Heaven and Hell. Sam, Dean, and Cass search for a girl who's able to hear the angels. But the thing is, they're wanted. She's wanted by both heaven and hell because she can hear the angels. And it turns out she's a former angel who fell. One of the things I really liked about this episode is when her and Dean are talking, and Dean asks her about why would you ever want to fall. And they start going back and forth about what's so good about being a human versus what's bad. War, sickness, and all that. And then she states, eventually she gets the chocolate cake, and then he says something, and she says sex, and Dean's like, yeah, you got me there. But also for the fact that in the end she had to make a choice, even though she may not have been a fan of it at the time, in order to protect people. Season 4, episode 18. The monster at the end of this book. The Winchesters stumble upon the book series entitled Supernatural, chronicling their travels as well as the author of the series. First showing of the character of Chuck. What's interesting is I know it's going to sound like I'm lying, but I'm not. The way they played Chuck in this, I thought he had to be more than a prophet originally, because he wrote the thing and he talked about how he brought them to life. In my view, the prophet doesn't bring things to life or make them happen in that way. They see things, because Joan of Arc was considered to be a prophet by some, and I mean, actually by a lot, because she had visions. Those visions weren't of her actually doing the action. They were what will happen if she goes through with it. God spoke to her, telling her, hey, you need to do this. Or the angel did. I can't remember that part exactly. If it was an angel or the Lord was supposed to have spoken to her. But one of the two did. And then she led the army. And sadly, she gets burned as a witch. But with Chuck, he was writing stuff, and it's what had happened. And he thought he was telling them what they did. And I think he even made a comment about he was God at this time that most people would have just written off. But in fact, I saw it as he was actually admitting it. And while Cass says, no, he's a prophet, again, I said he was God. Season 4, episode 22, the season finale, Lucifer Rising. While the Winchesters prepare in different ways, Sam drinking demon blood, and Dean over here trying to get ready to go and kill Lilith, but they're both wanting to stop Lilith in the end. And heaven and hell both get involved. Well, it turns out that whilst Dean had wanted to work with the angels weren't wanting to stop the actual war from happening. They wanted it to occur. And this was bad, because with the angels wanting the war to occur, it leads to trouble. And so the Winchesters end up killing Lilith and starting the apocalypse. Season 5, Episode 6, I Believe the Children Are Our Future. The Winchesters come to a town where urban legends and fairy tales are actually resulting in murders, as well as a little boy named Jesse, who's very dangerous because, as it turns out, he was the Antichrist. But Jesse gets told he has a decision to make. He can do as what they're wanting and become the Antichrist and hurt people, or he can actually go the other way about it and not want to. Jesse ends up taking himself off the board altogether. Nobody can find him. Nobody knows what he's doing. And we actually never hear about Jesse again, which I find odd. I thought he would have actually been an interesting character to bring back later on. Especially in the actual apocalypse world that occurred in later seasons. Season 5, Episode 8, Changing Channels, where the trickster traps the Winchesters in TV land. And Dean actually figures out the trickster is an angel. And it turns out not only is he an angel, he's the Archangel Gabriel, who decided to do the trickster lifestyle because he was he didn't want to get trapped between his brothers when they fought. He wanted to take a neutral stance, and so he went into what he called witness protection style of it. And I have to agree with Dean that when he said in the episode, Gabriel was just too scared to stand up to his brothers. And now for season 5, episode 19, The Hammer of the Gods. Winchesters happen upon a hotel where the non-Christian gods, aka the pagan gods, sorry, that's how I know they're referred to as, even if others don't refer to it as that. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. And have met and planned to use the Winchesters themselves as bargaining chips to stop the Christian side from from bringing on the apocalypse that's supposed to happen. Now, season 6, episode 4, Weekend at Bobby's. After Bobby made a deal with Crowley in order to try and help stop the apocalypse, Crowley is now refusing to follow through on his side of the deal and give Bobby back his soul. So Bobby, along with the Winchesters, start looking for a way to get Crowley to go back to follow through with the deal. Well, they find a way. They summon his son, and they summon Crowley's son, find out his real name, and then turn around and dig up Crowley's bones and threaten to set him on fire as if he's any other spirit, which, as it turns out, is a way to kill a demon. You burn the bones, they burn with it. Season 6, episode 17, My Heart Will Go On. Yeah, you can pretty much tell by the title what it has to deal with in some way. Sam and Dean are hunted by fate. Well, at least one of the sisters. After Castiel and a fellow angel unsink the Titanic. And they unsink it in order to collect souls. And fate is having to work overtime to make things right. Season 7, episode 5, Shut Up, Dr. Phil. The Winchesters stumble upon, I'd like to refer to it as a War of the Roses, but I'm not sure that applies in this situation. But it is a war between a married witch couple. Because of believed affairs and past histories of affairs. One thing I really enjoyed about this is that the witches involved are Charisma Carpenter and James Marster. Anyway, James, I can't remember if it's Marsters or Matt. I think it's Marsters is his name. But anyways, it's the ones who played Cordelia and Spike on the Angel and Buffy verse. Or in the Angel and Buffy verse. Season 7, episode 13, Slice Girls. Dean has a one-night stand with a woman, which, as it turns out, she's an Amazon, and has serious consequences as it produces a child from that one-night stand in a span of 24 hours. And upon that, it's that the woman has to grow up. The child grows from being a baby to a teenager within that span. And in order to permanently seal their connection to the Amazons, or prove their loyalty as it's referred, they have to kill their fathers in violent and brutal way. Season 7, episode 20, girl with the Dungeon and Dragons tattoo. It's a female hacker that stumbles upon is hired by Roman, Dick Roman, the king of the Leviathans, apparently. Who the guy who plays Dick Roman in this is actually now known for playing Valentine Cassadine on General Hospital. Just a little note there. Anyways, he hires this female hacker who stumbles upon the Winchesters and actually learns of her boss's evil in the process. And that female hacker is none other than Charlie, and this is the first appearance of Charlie in the series. Season 8, Episode 6, Southern Comfort. While working a case involving an interesting piece, the boys stumble upon a hunter named Garth and find out he's become the new Bobby. Since Bobby's dead and the boys, nobody knew what happened to him. Well, this interesting piece that it's referred to is a coin that soldiers were buried with. Season 8, Episode 8, Hunter Heroicy. I'm probably mispronouncing that. The Winchesters and Castiel stumble upon a town where the laws of cartoons apply. The laws of the cartoon world, actually, I should say, are what applies. Such as staying in midair till you look down, you drop an anvil on somebody, any of that. Season 8, Episode 11, Larp and the Real Girl. The Winchesters stumble upon a case, as well as Charlie, who's under a new name now, where the case is actually a person is taking a game way too seriously by literally killing off the competition. And they're using magic to do it. Season 9, Episode 7, Bad Boys. While looking into a murder, Dean gets a call from an old friend, and Sam gets a look into Dean's past when he wasn't doing hunting. And it turns out that Dean actually did live a good life during this short little period of time. He had a girl he liked. He did some Greco-Roman style wrestling like he would do in college and in the Olympics. I know I'm saying that wrong, but it's a habit. Also, Dean's living at a home for boys that's basically as a way to reform them rather than sending them to juvie and prisons. The thing is that the person who runs this place, the actor who plays the guy running the place, is Blake Gibbons. For those of you who watched General Hospital, it's Coleman who ran Jake's, which eventually became the Floating Rib. On this show, he plays the guy who runs the farm, reform home, however you want to look at it. And his name is actually Sonny. My only question is if they spell that with a U or an O. Because if they spell that with an O, that could be a nod to the fact that he was on General Hospital. As there is a character on General Hospital with the name Sonny Corinthos, who is a mobster. Season 11, Episode 4, Baby. The Winchesters hunt a ghoul-like creature, which is actually not the accurate term, as it's a vampire ghoul mix, and deal with an ominous dream. All the while, the episode is shot from inside the Impala, or what's known as a bottleneck episode. Season 11, Episode 8, Just My Imagination. The Winchesters are hunting a murderer of imaginary friends, and the person who hires them to do the case, or asks them to work the case, is actually Sam's imaginary friend from when he was a child. Season 14, Episode 6, Optimism. Sam and Apocalypse Charlie work a case and find some common ground, while Dean and Jack work a case where a woman has suitors that keep dying. And it turns out the reason why, the woman is a necromancer who has her high school boyfriend brought back from the dead as a zombie, and it's a game for them where the naughty nurse, like the naughty nurses or stuff like that, and she gets off on this in some way. Personally, I thought she was great. I thought that one was a bit much, but the girl was extremely insane. Season 15, Episode 7, Last Call. Dean and Sam work a case in Texas. Well, sorry. It's not Dean and Sam, it's just Dean. Dean works a case in Texas investigating a woman's disappearance and runs into an old friend who happens to be behind the disappearances, as he feeds these women to a monster and then gets rid of the bodies. The thing I found, the part I really enjoyed about this, Christian Kane guest starred in this episode. And with the stuff Christian Kane's done in the past, he was on Angel as Lindsay. He did The Librarians. He did Leverage as Elliot. I figured he would have been on this series sooner than he was, and they would have found something for him. I could have seen him being a vampire, werewolf, or some other type of monster, and it would have worked. But him also being a former hunter and friend of Dean's made sense. Also, there's a scene in this where they sing Good Old Boys, aka the Dukes of Hazzard theme song. And it made me and it's got me wondering if they actually performed that with them singing it live, or if it was or if they staged it that way and just added it in later. Because Jensen and Christian are both known for singing at times, and Christian Kane is actually a really good singer, so it would have been good to have. So I think it would have been good to actually have them do it together and see how it turned out. Season 15, Episode 11, The Winchesters take on Fortuna, the goddess of luck, in Alaska in a winner-takes-all pool hall. The thing is that anybody could play, anybody could do this. But when they decide to take on Fortuna, she gets them to play double or nothing. And the idea is you take on Fortuna and lose, you could very well lose your life. But you play for your luck in general. And when that happened, it went very badly. they lose to Fortuna, but she says since the Winchesters were willing to fight for the people that were in the bar, as they might die or they were trapped there in some way as prisoners, she made she decided shut down the operation as Sam had suggested, and even gave them their freedom, while at the same time giving Sam and Dean their luck back, as they had shown great heroic spirit and shown her that the heroes still do exist in the world. Season 11, I mean, not season 11. Hey, sorry, I got ahead of myself there. Season 15, episode 16, Drag Me Away From You. The Winchesters help a friend track a monster from a case they thought they had settled in their childhood. And at the time they did it in their childhood, it wasn't even them really working a case. It was them just trying to help out some kids. And what happened was, it turns out they're fighting Baba Yaga or Baba Yaga. Again, not really sure on the pronunciation because I've heard it both ways, and I've heard it in multiple sources as both ways. But they're fighting her because the item that bound her to this plane of existence was fixed and she was able to come back. Whereas when it got destroyed when they were younger and separated from her, she wasn't able to return and was sent away. Season 15, episode 19, Inherit the Earth. The Winchesters take on God in the final battle, which, as I stated earlier, this could have been the final episode in the series. And it would have made sense. Because they fight God, they win, and it's over. Now, season 15, episode 20. Well, it's listed as 20, but to some it might be 21 because of the 2-hour finale thing. And with me, I want to call it 20 because I don't want to count that first part as an episode. So, season 15, episode 20, which was what this whole thing was about, carry on. We get Sam and Dean after the battle with God, and Jack having left to let the humans, to let mankind live their lives without God getting involved. Which, to me, is what Jack basically became when he made God, when they beat God. Because he took all the energy that God had been using in beating up Sam and Dean, absorbed it, and then took all the power from God in the process, making God human. And also, he absorbed Amara in the process. And I'm not exactly sure how that part happened when he did it, but it was good that he did it because he actually knew how to do it. And he also knew how to actually be God without having to do it. Without going overboard as Chuck had done and getting involved. He fixed some things. He set some things right. And then he said, let the people deal with it as they should. Heaven. It's supposed to be a good place. It is. Hell, it's hell as far as he was concerned. And him and Cass, after saying everything right, they left heaven. Nobody knows where they went or what they were doing. Then we get to see Dean and Sam doing what they do best. And also living their lives afterwards. So thank you for watching. Please leave your comments on this review. And also, what was your favorite episode of Supernatural? I'm actually curious. And also, like I've said before, don't be afraid to tell me what you would like to see me do a video on or discuss, because if I can do it, I will discuss it, and I will give you credit for me discussing it. Till then, I'm out.